Hello, everyone. We'd like to welcome a very special guest, Occupy the Web, author of Linux Basics for Hackers, Network Basics for Hackers, and Getting Started Becoming a Master Hacker. He's also one of the leaders of the cyber war to save Ukraine. I actually reached out to Occupy the Web a few weeks ago. I took a shot in the dark, and we are very lucky to be given this opportunity to learn from the master himself. So thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I'm happy to be here and be able to share some information and knowledge with your viewers.
Your community would definitely love to hear some information from a real hacker.
Yeah, so I think a lot of the stuff that we would like to speak about are like basic fundamentals for privacy and security. Did you want to take a second to say a little bit about yourself, your background, and I can start launching questions at you?
Sure. Well, let's see. I used to be a university professor, and about 20 years ago, because of a number of unfortunate events, ended up in the hacker world, and I've been there for over 20 years now. For a long time, I trained hackers at the U.S. military and the intelligence agencies, and that was how I ended up starting Hackers Arise, which is a training site for hackers. We train hackers there for penetration testing, which is kind of legal hacking, where you pay somebody to come in and hack your site to test it. And we also train cyber warriors, folks who are working in cyber war, and that's part of our efforts in the Ukraine-Russia war. Is that we've been not only are we been active in trying to save Ukraine, but also we have a school in Ukraine, in Kharkiv, Ukraine, 24 miles from the Russian border. So we probably have the hacker school closest to the Russian border of any place in the world. We're literally 24 miles, a few rockets from the border of. And
that's crazy. They've been hit before.
Oh, we've been hit. We've been hit, and we've lost electricity on a number of occasions. It actually inhibited. We couldn't even open the school until January because we didn't have electricity and internet access there. But we've been pretty steady since mid-January. So we opened up, and we've been training hackers there to protect Ukraine and to try to defend Ukraine from the Russian attacks. So that's what I've been doing. I'm at hackersarise.com. I'm on Twitter under 3Cube, at 3Cube. So you can see me there. You can DM me there. I also have an email address at OccupyTheWeb at protonmail.com. So if you have questions, feel free to ask me there.
Excellent. Well, yeah, thank you again for all your hard work and everything that you're putting into saving Ukraine and educating people. It's definitely something I think a lot of people take for granted and potentially overlook. And I think just bringing more awareness to serious matters at hand and privacy and security is just going to grow over time. And I would like to start off with a couple questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
So we're gonna start kind of in a basic manner here. So one of the questions I'd like to ask are, what are some simple steps I can take to secure my home Wi-Fi network?
Your home Wi-Fi network. Well, Wi-Fi is one of those things that's pretty easy to hack, and so a lot of your listeners probably have had their Wi-Fi hacked in the past. If you need to have a complex password, that's probably the most important thing to do.
Yeah,
it's if you have a simple password, it's pretty easy to hack your Wi-Fi. Also, there's one of the things that we do is that when we teach Wi-Fi hacking, we use the 10,000 most widely used passwords. So make sure that the password you use is not in that 10,000 list.
Right.
And that 10,000 list is on Hackers Rise under the passwords tab. We have the 10,000 most widely used and the 1 million most widely used. And
wow.
if you're using one of those passwords, 1 million passwords, right? That's about, we found from the data dumps that are on the dark web. So we get our passwords off the data dumps. If your listeners don't know, is that when a company gets hacked, a service, an application gets hacked, hackers, after they've used the passwords, they dump them onto the dark web. And so your password is probably there somewhere, right? And if you don't know, go try a site like Have I Been
Have I been
Pwned?
pwned? Yeah.
Have I Been Pwned? And see whether or not your password is been hacked. It probably has. There's about 3 billion passwords on the dark web. And so most people will find that their password is there. Now, if that's the case, right, don't be using that same password on your Wi-Fi. Don't be using that on your bank account. Make sure you change the password and change it significantly. What we found, when I'm trying to hack into somebody's account, one of the first things I'll do is I'll go find the last password that is on the dark web, right? And then I'll try it. And if it doesn't work, then I'll make some small changes to it, like put a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or start it with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or use particular person's spouse's name, friend's name, dog's name, and I can get all of that off, open source sources like Facebook and Twitter and what have you.
Somebody's trying to hack my Facebook earlier today. I was like, go ahead and take it. I haven't used it in a decade.
So that's one of the things. If you're trying to keep your Wi-Fi safe, which really is like I said, it's relatively easy to hack. So make sure that the password is relatively complex. That means using letters, numbers, uppercase, lowercase, special characters. The more things that you add to your password, the more difficult it becomes for a hacker to hack it. In some cases, it becomes so difficult to hack that they'll go and find somebody else to hack. Right? And that's basically, you cannot make your system unhackable. You can only make it difficult to hack. And hackers are opportunistic. They're not going to, unless you are specifically the target because you've got a lot of money in the bank or something like that, where they're coming after you, or you have national secrets, they're going to go to the easiest person to hack. So if you've got a complex password in there, and it should not be a dictionary word. If it's a dictionary word, it's going to be way too easy to crack. Also, make certain that you're using the most recent protocols for using Wi-Fi, which is WPA2 or WPA3. If you're using some of the older protocols, you got an old router, it becomes very, very easy to hack those older protocols.
Oh, wow. Definitely that's a lot of good info there. So how often would you recommend changing your password, or how many characters minimum would you recommend as well?
Well,
The longer the better.
Obviously, the longer the better, but it also has to be something you can remember, right?
Yeah.
And so if you make your password something you don't remember, then you're not be able to get back into it. And I've done that. Everybody's probably done that if you change your password a lot and use complex passwords. And that's why one of the recommendations that people give is that, one, don't write down your password on your desk, right? Don't leave it on your desk because somebody walks into your desk and get your password. And I've actually gone into offices where I had a job to be able to hack into their systems. That was what they're paying me to do.
You just walk around and see a password right
and
there.
I just walk around and see the passwords on their desk. Or oftentimes it'll be stuck underneath the keyboard, or it'll be you open up the top drawer of the desk and there's the password right there. So
I was like, I gotta check.
that brings up another important issue, is that you need to provide physical security on your systems. Because if you give me access, physical access to your computer,
The
I can s-
keylogger or anything.
if you give me physical access to your computer, I can take it over in a matter of minutes. All right. So it's important. I don't need the password. Okay. It's important to not allow anybody to have access to your computer. If you want to, if that's a risk, if there's a risk of somebody in your house, in your school, in your office, you have to maintain physical security because that's really too easy to hack, right? If remote hacking, for somebody coming in from the outside, that's a little bit more difficult to do. And generally, what happens in those kinds of circumstances is that most of the time it's a social engineering, right? It's relatively easy to hack you by getting you to click on a link, getting you to click on a document, getting you to click on a PDF. And we've probably, if you ever look at your spam folder, you'll probably see a lot of attempts to hack you, or people are sending you links. So just open up this document, open up this link, click on this link. And if you do that, you're done, right? It's really easy to hack you when people click on links, right? And so this is going to what's called social engineering, where the hacker tries to get you to make an action, right? That's going to give them control of your computer, right? That's relatively easy to do. If you don't click on anything, okay, you don't open any documents, and this can be hard because sometimes hackers will go ahead and take over. So, for instance, I can go into the dark web, right, and I can get the password on somebody's Gmail account. I can log into their Gmail account, and then I can begin to send out links to everybody in their contacts, right? And so it's going to look like it's coming from a friend, and they're sending you a link to click on or a document to open up, what have you. Those become really difficult to not click on those, but you have to be very vigilant to not click on links. If otherwise, you got to read carefully. The other thing I tell people to do is that always make sure to read the from and the to in the emails that come from you. Because if it says they're from the IRS and they're sending you an email, and if you look at the from address, it's not the irs.gov, it's not the IRS, right? It
Yeah.
might say something close to that, but you gotta be.
Did you see recently? I think it was a Microsoft server or something, or I don't know exactly how it was, but there was like they had access to like the Microsoft email system still, like this third party company, and they were like,
Yes, that did
using it
happen. That just
nefariously.
happened. That just happened this week.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
And so then it becomes relatively easy to trick people to click on links because it looks like it's coming from a trusted friend, partner, business associate. And in my case, because I'm under constant attack from the Russians, that I have to be really, really careful, and that I almost never will open up anything. And my students and my friends know that about me, because and they won't send me those things because they know that I won't open them. But in most people's cases, and for me, it's a life or death circumstance. For other people, it's not going to be life or death, right? But you, by clicking on anything, by making some action, you make it much easier for the attackers to take over your system. It can be done without, okay, you're clicking, but it's much harder to do, like 100 times harder to do. All right. So it's much less likely to happen. There are things.
that's why Apple has like the $1 million bounty on the zero click exploits, right?
Yeah, and NSO Group has proven that they can send out zero click exploits. NSO Group is a hacker. It's not a hacker. It's a cybersecurity organization out of Israel, and they've developed what's called Pegasus. And Pegasus is zero click, right? They can send that to your phone and take over your phone. They say that they only sell it to governments, as if that's something that's good.
It's out there. You
Right.
can find it.
but it's out there, and people are using it. So, but it's still, when NSO Group sells that software to governments, they charge $20,000 to $25,000 per. Okay, so that gives you some idea of how expensive it is to have a zero-click um, hack exploit is what we call it. We call it an exploit. So
That's a good question.
it does happen. It does happen, but it's much less likely. It's most of the attacks, most of the people who get attacked click on something. Okay, they click on a link, they open a document, and it's really easy to embed malware into documents or into URLs. So that's what the average user has to really pay very close attention to, is not clicking on those links.
Somebody's in the live chat. They're asking if there's any alpha you can share on how to prevent SIM swaps. That's an interesting topic too.
Yeah, I mean that's a difficult one to try to guard against, because it's basically a social engineering attack there too.
Yeah.
Where somebody's impersonating you and going ahead and swapping out SIMs. So the only thing I can tell you is to be in close contact with your provider. Make sure that your provider has a specific security protocol that requires that they ask certain questions, in terms of security questions, so that they can prove that it's you. Otherwise, somebody can just go in, impersonate you, get the SIM, and all of a sudden they take over your account, and they're getting all of your emails and all your messages. And
Right.
of course, once they've done that, then they can actually get into your bank account and what have you. So that's a social engineering attack. And the only way to really prevent social engineering attacks is through good security practices and awareness. There is no technical fix to social engineering attacks. You have to have good protocols, security protocols in place. In this case, it's going to be a security protocol by your provider. If your provider is lackadaisical and doesn't have good security protocols in place, then it's possible for somebody to impersonate you and get your SIM card. I mean, you and I can walk down to our cellular provider and ask for a new SIM card. If somebody else comes down there, hopefully your provider asks them to prove who they are, that they're actually you, before they provide them with a SIM card. And so that's really where the problem comes in.
I guess that brings me to the next question. Are there any specific security settings or features someone could or should enable on their computer or smartphone to enhance their protection?
Well, that's an interesting question. There's lots of things that we can do to help keep ourselves safe. And it's really hard, like I said, for somebody to just attack you and take over your computer just without your taking no action. So there was a time, even a few years ago, where all computers were easily commandeered. There was a exploit called the Eternal Blue that came out in 2017 that basically allowed anybody to take over any computer. But those are pretty rare. And so in that case, barring that, right, you can put up a personal firewall, you can put AV software on your system. Those are all going to help, right? Those are going to help to, one, the firewall is going to block the ports on your system that you're not using. So ports are like doors into your operating system.
Yeah.
So every time that you connect to anything, you're connecting through a port, whether it be port 80 or 443.
Yeah, I have a couple physical servers, and what I like to do is run services on non-standard ports.
And that's a good idea. So if you have servers, you want to run things on non-standard ports, but I can still figure out what ports you're running
Right.
on.
Yeah, you can
just
see
by
which ones are open. Yeah.
see which ones are open. But so what you want to do is you want to block all of the ports that you're not using, right? If you're not using it, then don't leave it open. You know, the two cardinal rules for anybody trying to what's called harden a system is to turn off any unused services and keep everything updated, right? You do all your security updates and you turn off or disable all the services, because every service on your machine has vulnerabilities. The more vulnerabilities there are, the greater chance somebody's going to take advantage of them and exploit your system. So what I would say to the average user is, keep that firewall in place, right? And check it periodically to make sure that it doesn't have any ports open that shouldn't be open. Keep a good AV software on your system, right? AV is not perfect. Let's point that out. AV is good. It's a good practice, but AV, even the best AV software, can only pick up about 98%, 99% of the malware that's out there. When I say malware, I mean all of the bad stuff. People, sometimes call it viruses, but technically a lot of the stuff that's out there is not a virus. It's just what we refer to as malware. It's just software that does bad things. And AV software at best can pick up 98, 99% of it. So some of it is still going to miss. So people always come to me and say, oh, how could my machine have gotten hacked when I have AV software on it? Well, there's a couple of ways that it can happen, right? One is that your AV software missed it, okay? Or two, it's a 0-day software. So 0-day is an attack that's never been seen before. And AV software largely is dependent upon a signature of malware. It's that if it knows about it, it knows its signature, and then it can detect it. If it doesn't know about it, it can't detect it. So to sum up, I would say that what most people can do is make sure those passwords are complex, all right? Long and complex.
I was thinking about this. I couldn't remember what it was called, but it was the log4j exploit. Was it last year?
Yes, last year.
That one was a bad one.
Yeah, that was definitely a bad one. It mostly hit, though, large companies, right?
Yeah, everybody was running Java.
Yeah, and so for the individual, that's not usually going to be an issue because most people are not keeping a log of their activity. Right now, what we are probably the most devastating attack we're seeing right now is the one that is hitting the big companies that is coming out of Russia, and the name is escaping me. I just did a David Bombal interview on it, and I can't remember the name of it. If you guys can help me out, what is it called? No, you guys,
Here.
yeah. Okay, give me a second. I'll find it. It's here. It is. I got it. It's a SQL injection attack that takes place. It's called Move It. That's what it was. That's what I'm thinking of. It's Move It, and it's attacking. It's a SQL injection attack against these companies who back up their data to these clouds providers. All right. And it takes advantage of a SQL injection attack, and basically it's stealing all of their data and then charging them to get it back. Right. And it's costing companies millions of dollars now.
So they're not ransomwaring it, they're just copying it and saying we'll delete it or whatever if you pay us.
They're saying they don't really have the option to delete it. What they're doing is they're stealing their data, right? And that includes emails, documents.
But the original's still there also, though, is what I'm asking.
The original's still there. They're not deleting it. Right. Okay. And so the threat is that we're going to reveal all of your emails, and all your intellectual property. Originally, it started off as ransomware, but they've evolved to the point where they're just basically, it's blackmail, saying either you pay us or we're going to go ahead and reveal all this information that we have about your companies. And people are putting everything up into the cloud, right? So everybody's putting things up in the cloud. So all of the data that the company has is in the cloud. And most people don't want, their intellectual property, emails, what have you, revealed to the general public. This particular attack has hit BBC in UK. It's hit British Airlines. It's hit many universities in the United States, and some government agencies, several big companies. This is one that's happening right now, and we're about to see. I mean, that's largely focused though on big companies because that's where the money's at. These folks spent 2 years developing this attack, so that gives you some idea of the complexity and sophistication of this. It took 2 years to develop, and that's where hacking is in 2023. Hacking is not like your TikTok video. Real hacking is not like your TikTok video or your YouTube video where I can take over a system in 30 seconds or less. Yes, that's true if you have people who click on links, right? You can take over the system. But generally, when we start talking about these major attacks against big companies, we're talking about these are years in the development to be able to do that. So they're not going to waste one of these attacks against the individual who's, who has a little bit of money in the bank, right?
Yeah.
Those types of attacks are by much less sophisticated hackers who are happy to get $100 or $1,000.
I always thought it was funny, the like Discord and Twitter scammer DMs, they like send you a link or whatever, and I never click them. But what I usually do is I'll make a new link with like Grabify or something. I'll send it back to them and I'll grab their IP address or something.
Right.
And then be like, hey, so you're in Kenya, right? And they're like,
How did you know that? Yeah, Grabify, for those people who don't know, is simply a link that will pull the IP address, whoever who clicks on it, right? And all the traffic that you send across the internet always has your IP address on it. And your IP address can link you to a country and to a city. It's not going to link you. It's not going to link you to your home. And that's one of the things that people misunderstand.
Yeah, it's just a general area.
It's just a general area, and sometimes it's just a general state, and sometimes it's simply wrong. Right?
Yeah.
But it can be helpful if somebody gets into the DHCP server at the ISP, so the dynamic host. Dynamic host
Content provider.
That was not content provider. What is it? DHCP. I just used to using the acronym DHCP.
Host configuration protocol.
Host, yeah.
Dynamic host configuration protocol.
Dynamic host configuration protocol. That's basically a server that assigns IPs. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's the thing that you put in your URL and it says this is the IP that it goes with.
That's a DNS server. That's different.
Oh, you're right. My brain's everywhere.
Yeah. A DHCP server is one that assigns the IP. So when somebody connects to the ISP, you go ahead and load up your computer and you turn it on, your ISP will assign an IP address to your machine, right? And so they have the records of who has what IP when. And so that's the ultimate source of your IP address. One of the things that I think a lot of people don't understand is that everybody, in terms of anonymity, is focused on hiding their IP address, right? They want to use a VPN.
I was going to say this might be a good step way into VPNs.
Right. I mean, people want to use VPNs and proxies, what have you, and that's going to hide your IP address. That's what it's going to do. But there's a lot of ways to identify you. Okay. That
if you log into one of your accounts that you used without it or something like that, yeah.
There's lots of ways to identify you that have nothing to do with your IP address. So if you're sloppy, lazy, I don't want to say that really. But there are, what I'm saying is that if you're talking about the commercial entities and you're talking about intelligence agencies, they can identify you without your IP address. Your IP address is irrelevant to them. So all these people who are selling you VPNs and other devices to hide your identity, they're not going to work. The only thing it's going to do is it's going to hide your IP address. But your IP address at best, all it's going to do is bring you back to a particular region of a country or a city. And law enforcement could go ahead and get the DHCP IP addresses from the ISP. But in terms of others who want to identify you, it's not that hard for them to identify you from a variety of sources, other than your IP. So I just want to put that out there as a caveat for people to be worried about, to concern about, is that a lot of people go and buy a VPN service and go, oh, I'm safe now because I have a VPN service. No, you're not safe.
I have a VPN, but I don't use it for that really.
Okay.
Like I basically like I'm kind of like the people who know don't care and the people who care don't know. So I just kind of keep living.
Good.
So a lot of these attacks happen to, I guess, occur on the cloud, or like the SQL injection, and the bigger businesses, everyone uploaded to the cloud.
Right.
Correct. Yeah.
Not a lot of them, but this one I'm talking about did take place in the cloud. Now, one of the things that we probably should talk about also is that, one of the great threats against individuals and to small organizations is ransomware, right? And one of the key things that you need to do to protect against ransomware, of course, is not click on any links, right? But if you make that mistake, at least make sure that you have a backup of your data, and that backup is not connected to your machine, right? Because if the backup is connected to your machine, the ransomware will encrypt the backup too. So make your backup periodically, and then whether it be in the cloud or physical backup in your office, and then remove the backup, physically remove it from your machine, right? And then if you're unlucky and you get ransomware and everything gets encrypted, you go, oh, geez, well, that's really too bad, but I can just restore everything.
Yep.
and I'm not
I've kind of done that to myself before, because like Linux sometimes, like installing drivers and stuff, like I've messed it up to where like I'm on the command line again only, and I'm like, oh crap. So like just start over, just load up my extra drive, and
right. And that's what you do. You just make sure that you periodically back things up. It'll take you some time to restore your data, but it'll end up saving you, all the headache of having to pay a ransom and then having to restore your data again. So, it's just a good practice for everybody to back up to the cloud, back up to, a physical drive. Right now, hard drives.
Something that's air gapped.
The hard drives are cheap. You can buy, 1 terabyte drives for what, $50-$60 now?
Like nothing. I think I got a 2 terabyte for like $50.
Right. So there's no reason. I mean, it used to be where hard drives were expensive. Yeah,
I remember it must have been around like 2009 or 10. I paid $100 for the largest flash drive I could get at the time, which was 1 gigabyte.
Right. Well, I could tell you some stories that that will blow you away in terms of costs and how much they've changed. I can remember building a machine in the 1990s, okay, with 2 gigabytes of RAM. 2 gigabytes of RAM.
Right.
Okay, you know what the cost of that RAM was? It cost
thousands.
$20,000.
Yeah, that's nuts. That's insane.
So it gives you some idea of the change in the value of these technologies. So, I mean, we thought that was a really good price. We could only pay $20,000 to build a 2 gig of RAM. But in any case, that's. I mean, if you keep on going back and further in history, you can come up with all these crazy prices of what things used to cost. So, anyways,
just keep looking to the future.
Yeah, things are always getting cheaper. So. That's why I always recommend to people, don't overbuy your computer, right? Don't overbuy your computer, because tomorrow it'll be cheaper. So if you're buying a computer saying, I want my computer to last me to be current for the next 5 years. Well, that doesn't make any sense, because you could buy another computer 5 years from now for a fraction of what that one costs and be a lot better.
You could buy the same computer for half the price in 5 years
or less, right?
Yeah.
Well, this kind of leads me to, well, this is going to be my final question. And before I ask it, I want to ask Jake if he has any questions or sees any other questions in the chat.
I don't think I
Before I-
see anything else.
Okay, so I'm going to ask it. Occupy the Web. Can you recommend any resources or websites where I, myself, and other viewers can learn more about cybersecurity and protecting ourselves online?
Go ahead
Well-
and shill away.
Well, my website, Hackers Rise, is really targeted to people who want to be hackers and not necessarily people who want to protect themselves. Although we do have some resources on there, but they're mostly like for commercial interest, things about putting in an intrusion detection system or using Splunk to be able to provide defenses against attacks. As far as the average user, I'm actually contemplating writing a manual now for the average user of how to protect themselves, to discuss some of the things that you and I are talking about right here, because most of the people who I work with on a daily basis are relatively sophisticated and they really want to be attackers, not defenders. And you might think, well, if they're attackers, they're all bad guys. Well, no, that's not the case, right? Because there's a number of professions
Your best defense is a good offense.
that is true as well. But the attackers now can make a good living as penetration testers. That is somebody who is hired by a company to try to attack their company and tell them what the weaknesses are. There's now bug bounty hunters who get paid to find flaws and vulnerabilities in software. There's cyber warfare people. I mean, every country in the world now is hiring cyber warriors to protect and defend and attack their adversaries. So those are the people that I work with on a daily basis. But I'm seriously considering writing a book for the average user, that how they can protect themselves against these types of attacks. And for those people who want to be attackers, obviously Hackers Arise is the best place to go.
We'll have that in the description down below on the video.
Yeah.
And I have several books to train hackers, as you mentioned at the beginning of this video.
And it's never too late to start. Is that correct?
It's never too late. We have students who are in their 50s and 60s, and I get people come to me who are in there they're like 24 years old, and they say, "Oh, is it too late to become a hacker? I'm 24 years old." It's like, no, it's not too late, and you're still very young. And literally, we do have students who are in their 50s and 60s who are training to become hackers. So it's never too late. And we have a lot of people who are transitioning from other careers into hack.
Oh, I think it cut out or we lost you.
Key.
Oh, there you go.
It's relatively easy to make the transition to penetration testing hacking.
Interesting.
That's great. Yeah, I just want to thank you so much again for joining us and answering our questions. Be sure to check out hackersarise.com, guys. Pick up a book or two. I know I'm going to pick up a few. I'm going to do some giveaways in our Discord and to our community and stuff. But definitely want to thank you again for your time, Occupy the Web.
It's been great being here. Thanks for all your excellent questions.
Appreciate it. Thank you.